I'm trying so hard lately to be peaceful and not get triggered. But I got triggered yesterday because of a trainer from the show The Biggest Loser named Jillian Michael, because she decided to comment on the studies that came out recently on a drug called Ozempic. And my buddy Spencer Nadolski kind of went off on her, and watching him go off on her made me get triggered too. And I'll just explain why real quickly, because she knows, she's a trainer. She was on The Biggest Loser. I don't know if you ever watched that show, but I hated that show. Just screaming at overweight people as if they're children, making them step on a scale, which is something they've feared their whole life, with no shirt on, all so that a public could sit there and laugh at them. Hated that show. And the way she treated patients on there was just so wrong. And what you've got to understand about her role as a trainer, making people lose weight, is that the long-term success of her weight loss with people is extremely poor. Extremely poor. In fact, they did a study out of Johns Hopkins looking at The Biggest Loser, and they found that the people that were on The Biggest Loser, despite their dramatic weight loss, regained their weight. Now, what's interesting is her criticism of the drug is that people don't need medications to lose weight. No, she doesn't understand the genetics behind obesity. She doesn't understand that some people are hungrier than other people. We know this from functional MRI studies, where they've placed people that are overweight in an MRI scanner, and they've offered them food or showed the pictures of food, and then compared it to people with normal weight, they get a very different response in places like the arcuate nucleus. We've seen different amounts of dopamine receptors. We know that there's hormones like ghrelin and leptin, and that some people are more affected by that than others. We know from adopted twin studies, et cetera, that there is a genetic part to obesity. And we know that unless you walk a mile in someone's shoes, you just really don't understand. The other thing she doesn't understand, and this is what really got me, this is why I'm jumping on here, is that her criticism of the drug is that people only lost a small amount of weight each week, half a pound a week, over 60 weeks. And this was a criticism to her. She said, this is not dramatic. They only lost a small amount of weight each week, even though it ended up being 14% at 60 weeks. What she doesn't understand is that is an amazing number. We don't want patients to lose a dramatic amount of weight. In fact, when you look at The Biggest Loser study, where they made those people lose a dramatic amount of weight over a short period of time, they had permanent damage to their metabolic rate. When you look at the study out of Hopkins and you look at their resting metabolic rate before they entered into The Biggest Loser, and then you look at it again when they finished The Biggest Loser, and then when they finished it 10 years later, they still had damage to that metabolic rate. Losing weight quickly through extreme measures is the worst way to lose weight. Slow, steady weight loss is what's key. If a patient needs a medication to help them control their hunger so that they can then make healthy food choices, because you're much more likely to make healthy food choices if you're not that hungry, why is that a problem? I have been dealing with obesity for 20 years, and I will take anything I could get to help a patient change their diet. And if it means that they take a medication and that years later they're 14% weight loss, I'll take it. Now, I will tell you that you got to be careful of these studies. These drug studies always seem to me to look better on paper than they do when I actually start to utilize them in patients. But still, utilizing a tool to help someone make healthy food choices is perfectly okay and only makes sense, because when you look at long-term data, for instance, in surgery, you'll see that people that get surgery actually live longer. Why would I withhold a surgery or a medicine if it can actually make people live longer? In the end, Jillian Michael, she's never really taking long care of a patient. She's never sat across from a patient week by week, month by month, and year by year. She's never tracked her data on significant databases. She hasn't reviewed the literature with obesity. And in the end, she really doesn't know much about obesity, and I really shouldn't care. It's just that she has a very very big social media following, and I feel that the way that she approaches obesity really actually adds to weight bias, and it puts someone who could potentially benefit from some of these treatments in a position where they feel like a failure if they use it. Done with the rant.